When you look at an architectural blueprint, there is this, incredibly comforting sense of order to the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. It's all just mapped out for you.
Right. You can see the load-bearing walls, you can measure the exact angles of the roof, the precise dimensions of every hallway. Everything just makes logical, structural sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can trace a line with your finger and
Yeah.
confidently say, this column right here is what holds up that ceiling.
Exactly. It's the promise of structural perfection.
The math basically tells you that if you just follow the lines, put the materials in the right place, the house is guaranteed to stand.
But what happens when an absolute tornado rips through that neighborhood?
Well, the blueprint goes right out the window.
Suddenly, your beautiful, highly logical blueprint doesn't mean a thing. The structure is completely gone, and you are just left staring at the raw, chaotic power of nature.
It's terrifying, but also kind of awe-inspiring.
For sure. And today, we are taking a deep dive into an incredible stack of sources you brought us that essentially forces us to ask that exact question about the sport we love.
Right.
We're asking, what happens when the meticulous tactical blueprints of modern football collide directly with the tornado of historic individual genius?
And looking at the materials you've shared with us today, we have a really unique vantage point to explore this. Because we aren't just looking at the match data, right? We are tracking a total evolution in how football is consumed and analyzed by you, the listener.
It's a whole pipeline we're looking at.
Exactly. From a Substack piece examining the booming, highly analytical landscape of women's football media to the raw tactical tracking data of the 2026 World Cup clash between Argentina and Austria.
Such a wild match.
Oh, completely. We take you all that way down to the messy, unfiltered fan reactions on Reddit.
Yeah, we are going to trace that entire pipeline today. We want to understand how the modern fans' surging demand for elite tactical analysis actually changes the way we watch the game.
And then we'll take that hyper-analytical lens and apply it to that deeply complex Group J matchup.
Right, watching tactical theory basically crash into on-pitch reality.
And of course, we'll look at Lionel Messi's record-shattering night.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll unpack how the digital age is fundamentally altering the mythology of the sport in real time.
I think the best place to start is actually off the pitch, looking at Emma Tobias's Substack article. It's called Bad Football Fan.
Love that title.
Because before we can talk about the tactics of the World Cup, we really have to look at how the audience's appetite for those tactics has completely matured. Tobiasen maps out the current landscape of women's football podcasts, and, the sheer depth of it is striking.
That stood out to me immediately, actually. The baseline has completely shifted. Fans aren't just tuning in to hear someone casually recap a box score anymore,
Right, or just tell a human interest story.
Exactly. They want the actual mechanics. Tobiasen specifically points to shows like Attacking Third from CBS, which breaks down the intricate tactics of the NWSL and the U.S. women's national team.
Yeah, and she also mentions She Scores Bangers, where the host, Miriam, is getting serious traction for these brilliant, really granular tactical breakdowns.
And it's a global phenomenon, too.
Oh, for sure. Tobiasen brings up Full-Time Europe, which provides individual player analysis and deep tactical reflections for the WSL in England and Spain's Liga F.
It's everywhere.
The common thread across all of these, even including the more relaxed but highly knowledgeable pods like Counterpressed, is a shift from asking what happened to demanding to know why it happened.
Yes, the why.
Fans want to understand pressing triggers, They want to know how a low-block defense operates, and they want to understand the spatial awareness of a specific midfielder.
To me, this explosion feels exactly like an indie music scene that suddenly starts dictating the mainstream tastes of an entire generation.
Well, that's a good comparison.
Right. Because for years, these niche, independent creators in the women's football space have been building highly detailed, passionate content for a really dedicated audience. And now, that level of detail is just becoming the industry standard.
It's setting the bar.
But let me throw a theory at you. Do you think this intense hunger for tactical depth in women's football is driven by the fact that traditional sports media historically ignored the sport? Did fans essentially have to build their own high-level analysis out of pure necessity? Or are we just looking at a broader reflection of the modern football fans simply being smarter than they were 20 years ago?
Well, I'd argue the historical underservice was the catalyst, but the technology is definitely the fuel.
Okay, unpack that.
When traditional broadcast media ignores a community, that community is forced to build its own infrastructure. And the beauty of that is they aren't restricted by the old dumbed-down broadcast models that assume the viewer barely knows the offside rule.
Right, they don't have to cater to the lowest common denominator.
Exactly. They can get as nerdy and specialized as they want, but, you can't ignore the technological shift either.
The supercomputers in our pockets.
Exactly. Every fan today has a smartphone. Heat maps, expected goals models, passing networks, all of that is accessible within seconds of a match ending. The baseline of football literacy has risen globally simply because the data is democratized.
And it isn't just numbers they want, though. It's also the long-form narrative. Tobiasen highlights true crime-style investigative journalism, too.
Oh yeah, like the BBC's A French Football Scandal.
Exactly, unpacking the Kier Hamraoui case. And Longshot, Payback, which is this deeply immersive series on U.S. player Jessica McDonald.
It just proves that an audience can hold two complex thoughts at once. I mean, they can appreciate the rigorous statistical analysis of a match, and they can digest complex, multi-layered human storytelling at the same time.
Which honestly gives us the perfect lens to look at the pitch itself. Because if we have this modern, highly literate fan base that understands pressing systems and spatial dynamics,
We need to apply that exact standard to the game.
yes, specifically to the 2026 World Cup Group J clash in Arlington, Texas. Argentina versus Austria.
Such a fascinating matchup on paper.
Right. Looking at the World Soccer Talk previews, this was billed as a massive tactical collision.
A total clash of distinct footballing ideologies. I mean, Austria came into this tournament managed by Ralf Rangnick,
Right. The godfather of the high press.
widely considered one of the godfathers of the modern high-intensity press, yeah. His system isn't just about running around frantically. It's a highly coordinated mechanism.
Like a machine.
Exactly. The moment Austria loses the ball, they don't retreat. They instantly hunt the ball in packs to suffocate the opponent before they can organize.
And it worked for them in qualifying.
Terrifyingly well. In their qualifying campaign, this blueprint was brutally effective. They averaged 64% possession, registered 18 tackles a match, and conceded a grand total of 4 goals.
4 goals! That is insane. So the blueprint says, suffocate the opponent, control the territory, win the ball high up the pitch.
Yep.
And if you just glance at the raw territory metrics from RotoWire and SofaScore for this match, it looks like Austria actually executed that plan.
It does look like that at first glance.
Right, because they beat Argentina 55-40 in final third entries. They spent the majority of the game operating in Argentina's end of the pitch.
But that's where the data really requires context. Because the reality of those 55 entries was what tacticians call sterile dominance.
Sterile dominance, that is a great phrase.
It's the perfect term for what we saw. Having the ball in the final third means very little if you can't actually penetrate the penalty area.
Right.
Austria essentially created a U shape around Argentina's box. They just passed it around the perimeter, but the final penetrating action was completely absent.
Just knocking on the door but never opening it.
Exactly. And the underlying numbers from SofaScore expose this beautifully. Despite entering the final third 55 times, Austria's expected goals, or XG, which measures the statistical probability of a shot resulting in a goal based on historical data.
Right, for the listeners who might not be as familiar with that stat.
Yeah, their XG was an abysmal 0.50.
A 0.50 XG from 55 entries means you are taking terrible, low percentage shots.
Horrible shots.
And we see exactly why when we look at their crossing stats. Only 2 of their 16 crosses were actually accurate.
Because crossing the ball in the air against a set defense featuring Christian Romero and Lisandro Martinez without a towering world-class target man, I mean, that is playing right into Argentina's hands.
Yeah, they were just eating those crosses up.
Argentina didn't even try to outpress Austria. They utilized this brilliant tactical rope-a-dope.
Okay, break that down.
They just absorbed the pressure, protected the central areas of their penalty box, blocking 3 Austrian shots in the process, and just waited for Austria to overcommit.
It's almost less like a matador in a bowl and more like mechanical judo.
Oh, I like that. Mechanical judo.
Right. You take the opponent's forward momentum and use it entirely against them. Austria pushes 6 or 7 men forward to hunt the ball, which means if Argentina can break through just that first line of pressure...
There is a massive empty void in the middle of the pitch.
Exactly, a huge void to counterattack into. And the stats show how lethal that judo was. Argentina only had 40 final third entries, but they generated an XG of 2.65, and 10 of their 12 shots came from inside the box.
They completely bypassed the useless perimeter passing and went straight for the jugular.
But the question we have to ask about Austria's system here is a high press inherently doomed against a technically superior press-resistant team like Argentina, or did Austria simply lack the personnel to make the blueprint work?
Well, the pre-match analysis heavily focused on the injury to Christoph Baumgartner.
Right, their main guy in the middle.
He's their creative link.
Yeah,
If you were going to press high and win the ball,
yeah.
you really only have a 2 or 3 second window where the opposition's defense is scrambled.
It's the flash.
Yeah, and you need a lock picker who can thread a pass in that chaos.
So did the Rangnick system fail, or did it just lack the specific key to unlock the door once they gave the porch?
The data strongly suggests they just lacked the key. I mean, the system successfully got them to the porch again. 55 final third entries against the defending world champions is no small feat.
It's huge.
The pressing structure worked to secure territory. But without Baumgartner finding those tight pockets of space between Argentina's midfield and defensive lines, Austria basically panicked.
They just chucked it into the box.
They resorted to those wide, low-percentage crosses.
Mm-hmm.
You can engineer a system to win you the ball, sure. But you cannot engineer the spontaneous creativity required to score against an elite set defense.
Right.
That requires individual brilliance.
Which brings us perfectly back to the tornado ripping through the load-bearing walls.
Yes, the tornado.
Tactical frameworks provide the structure of a football match, but individual genius is what actually shatters the framework and rewrites history. And there is no greater tornado in the modern era than Lionel Messi.
No. The historical weight of what he accomplished in this single 90-minute match is just difficult to overstate.
Let's run through it.
Okay, so he scored a brace, finding the back of the net in the 38th minute, and then again deep into stoppage time in the 95th minute. Those 2 goals pushed his career World Cup total to 18.
Completely rewriting the record books. He surpasses Miroslav Klose's all-time record of 16 and pushes further past Brazilian Ronaldo's 15.
Unbelievable.
And we have to remind ourselves, the man is pushing 39 years old.
A 39-year-old operating in the most physically demanding, tactically rigorous era the sport has ever seen.
It shouldn't be possible.
And with those goals, he also joins Just Fontaine and Girinho as the only players in the history of the sport to score in 6 consecutive World Cup matches.
Wow.
And just to layer on the mythology even more, he did all of this on the exact 40th anniversary of Diego Maradona's goal of the century against England.
I mean, if you wrote that in a movie script, it would be rejected for being way too heavy-handed.
Completely unrealistic, yeah.
But beyond the romance of the milestones, let's look at the actual tracking data, because SofaScore handed him a 9.2 match rating.
And that 9.2 is crucial because it dispels a very specific myth.
What's the myth?
Well, often, when legendary forwards age, they become static. They just wait in the penalty box for their teammates to do all the running, and they just provide the final touch.
Like a pure poacher.
Right. But Messi did not do that. He was the primary engine of Argentina's counterattacking judo. SofaScore tracked him, making 23 separate ball carries, covering 263.7 meters in total distance.
That's a lot of ground for a 39-year-old.
And most importantly, 108 of those meters were progressive, meaning he was actively driving the ball forward, breaking Austria's lines.
Think about the actual mechanics of that. How does a 39-year-old find the space to carry the ball 260 meters against a Ralf Rangnick press?
It goes back to that void we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Austria pushes up, Argentina beats the first trap, and Messi intentionally drops deep into that vacated space, receives the ball on the half turn, and suddenly he has a 30-yard runway before he even meets a center back.
It is extreme spatial intelligence compensating for fading physical pace. But the physical toll is still immense. In his post-match interview with Telemundo, he dropped the standard PR script entirely.
Yeah, that interview was fascinating.
He was visibly exhausted. He openly admitted he was running low on energy and that his legs felt heavy. And there's a moment that didn't make the stat sheet, where he shared a long, seemingly emotional hug with Jurgen Klopp on the touchline.
You are seeing the very real human cost of carrying the creative burden of an entire nation at that age.
Yeah, you really are.
And that human element is where I actually want to push on the narrative a bit. Because history remembers the records. History remembers the 9.2 rating and the stoppage time goal. But it conveniently glosses over the flaws.
Always.
If you just read the headlines, you would assume this is a majestic, flawless coronation. But it wasn't. In the first 10 minutes of the match, Messi stepped up to take a penalty.
Oh, man.
And he missed it. He put it wide.
It was a shocking moment. The whole stadium groaned, and the Austrian players were visibly lifted by it.
And think about the psychology of that. You are chasing the all-time World Cup scoring record. The entire globe is watching. You are handed a free shot from 12 yards out within the first 10 minutes, and you completely blow it.
Yeah.
How does a player mentally recover from a catastrophic failure on that stage? Honestly, I look at the missed penalty, and I think it makes his eventual 9.2 rating infinitely more impressive.
I agree.
The mental fortitude required to not hide after that is staggering.
The psychological recovery in elite sports is almost always more demanding than the physical execution.
Absolutely.
When a player of his stature misses an early penalty, two things happen. First, doubt creeps into his own mind. Second, the opposition gets a massive injection of adrenaline. They suddenly believe that God can bleed.
To smell blood in the water.
Exactly. The easiest thing for an aging player to do in that moment is to defer, to start passing the ball sideways, to let a younger teammate take the risks.
Just disappear into the system.
Right. But the fact that Messi absorbed that failure, continuously dropped into those high-pressure pockets to receive the ball, and still drove it 260 meters against a highly physical Austrian midfield.
Yeah.
That is a level of psychological resilience that a heat map simply cannot quantify.
Which provides a seamless transition into the final piece of our puzzle today.
It's a fan reaction.
The history books will print a very clean, pristine narrative. Lionel Messi breaks record. But the actual human experience of watching that game unfold, of digesting those tactics and that missed penalty, is incredibly messy.
Very messy.
To understand how this history was actually consumed, we have to wade into the digital trenches. We're looking at the raw post-match fan reactions on Reddit.
The digital pub, as it were.
Digital pub.
It's where statistical analysis, tribal loyalty, and raw, unfiltered emotion just collide.
And it is fascinating to sift through. If you look at the consensus in the Group J post-match thread, most neutrals agreed that Argentina deserved the 3 points purely based on the quality of their chances. But the Austrian fans were absolutely livid. They weren't just complaining about losing. They felt fundamentally robbed by a VAR non-call.
And their argument was highly specific, too. They were pointing to the build-up phase leading to Messi's first goal in the 38th minute.
Right. What were they saying happened?
Austrian fans argued there was a clear tactical foul committed by Argentina during the ball recovery. And why this matters is consistency.
Okay.
They immediately pulled up the tape from their final qualifying match against Bosnia, pointing out that Austria had a decisive goal ruled out by VAR for the exact same type of midfield foul.
Oh, wow.
They felt the officiating standard changed based on the stature of the opponent.
You literally had fans in the thread calling it Vargentina, claiming the tournament organizers just wanted Messi to break the record.
Of course they did.
Meanwhile, the Argentine supporters were firing back, dropping expected goal stats to prove Austria was offensively toothless anyway, and accusing the Europeans of just trying to downplay South American success.
Classic Reddit.
Right. But amidst all that saltiness, what really caught my eye was how fans are analyzing the broader context of the tournament. The record isn't sealed in a vacuum.
No, because Kylian Mbappe is currently sitting right there at 14 World Cup goals.
He's lucking.
He is a looming threat to this newly minted record.
Yeah.
The fans are actively calculating his trajectory, debating if he can catch 18 goals in this tournament or the next.
It's all connected.
They're also pulling back to look at the macro trends, noting that the traditional powerhouse nations look sluggish, and heavily discussing potential underdog runs from tactically disciplined teams like Japan and Ecuador.
Yeah, Japan looked great.
It really proves Emma DeBiason's point from the Substack.
Right.
The modern fan is processing multiple layers of data, history, and tactics simultaneously.
They really are. But reading through that Reddit thread, watching people fiercely argue over slow-motion VAR angles, debating the mechanics of a midfield foul, and throwing XG numbers at each other right after witnessing a 39-year-old break a decades-old record, it sparks a genuinely philosophical question for me. With our endless camera angles, our instantaneous replays, and our hyperfixation on statistical blueprints, have we fundamentally ruined the mythology of the game?
How do you mean?
Think about Maradona in 1986. Think about the hand of God or the goal of the century. Those moments became global myths because of the mystery, the singular, undeniable magic of the narrative.
Sure.
If Maradona played that match today, would we be talking about the sheer unbridled magic of his run? Or would the post-match thread just be 5,000 comments complaining about the referee's angle, analyzing his progressive ball carry metrics, and debating whether the English midfield deployed the correct pressing trigger?
Wow. That is the ultimate double-edged sword of the information age, isn't it?
Exactly.
On one hand, this deep analytical literacy that we see in the podcast and the data tracking is wonderful. It allows us to appreciate the intricate architecture of the sport. We can clearly see how Argentina dismantled Austria's press.
Right.
But you are absolutely right. The mystery is fading. The mythology of a lone gladiator single-handedly winning a match is constantly being fact-checked in real time by data models, showing us exactly how the team's defensive shape facilitated his run.
We're just pulling back the curtain too far.
We're dissecting the magic until it simply becomes math.
So what does this massive stack of sources mean for you, the listener? We started today by exploring how fans are actively seeking out highly nuanced, tactical podcasts to better understand the underlying mechanics of football.
Yep.
We took those blueprints to the pitch, watching Austria's high press fail to penetrate Argentina's set defense, and witnessed the historic, record-breaking genius of Lionel Messi shatter those frameworks.
Unbelievable match.
And finally, we saw how the digital age allows fans to instantly debate, quantify, and pull apart every single micro moment of that history on Reddit.
The digital pub never sleeps.
No, it doesn't. Whether you are prepping for a debate with your friends at the pub, or you're just trying to satisfy your own curiosity about how the modern game is evolving, remember that understanding how the information is framed, whether it's delivered through a tactical heat map, a romantic broadcast narrative, or a furious Reddit comment, is just as important as the information itself.
And as we watch the rest of this World Cup unfold, it leaves us with something profound to consider.
What's that?
Well, we have more access to deeper tracking data, smarter tactical podcasts, and high-definition instant replay than at any point in human history. Our understanding of football has become incredibly ruthlessly scientific.
Very true.
Yet we just watched Lionel Messi, pushing 39 years old, miss a penalty, battle through his own admitted exhaustion, and defy a modern pressing machine to break an impossible record.
It's insane when you put it like that.
So the question is, as the game moves forward, will future generations of fans ultimately value the mathematical, tactical perfection of the blueprint? Or will they always, deep down, crave the chaotic, unquantifiable magic of a single human being defying the odds?
The tornado tearing right through the load-bearing walls. Keep diving deep.